Let's bring in a federal politician who knows a bit about this space. That is the former Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce, joining us from Canberra. Thanks for joining us, Barnaby. Question without notice, just on that, you'd be well aware of the fact, of course, Austrade has missions and we have consul generals and embassies all around the country. Are these state-based, and it's not just New South Wales that has them, are these state trade commissioners necessary or are they a boondoggle?
And honestly, no, they're not necessary. I mean, it's quite absurd. If you go overseas, people don't quite get how you have an Australian one and a New South Wales one and a Queensland one. And guess which one they want to talk to? They want to talk to the Australian one. It's trade between nations, not trade between states. Sometimes it creates confusion because you get different messages from different areas. Ultimately, your borders are controlled by federal legislation, so you need the federal one is the one to speak to. It's a splitting of resources. To be quite frank, $600, what was it, $500,000, $600,000?
Yep.
That job, what on earth are you going to do for that? I mean,
well,
how many shows on Broadway can you go to?
Indeed. Well, I think that's a pretty strong view from you. I think the state governments should get rid of these positions. And it sounds like Labor is going to promise that in the lead up to the New South Wales state election next year. I want to talk to you about climate.
When they say there's more to hear about it, we've got more to say about that later on. That's actually code for I don't know what to say next. But go on.
Okay. We pick it up. I've seen it from all angles, as you know, Barnaby. I'm going to show you a little bit of what Adam Bandt had to say. Now, this is important because Adam Bandt now has said that he'll vote for Labor's new climate bill, and so are the so-called teal independents. But have a listen to this little bit of Adam Bandt at the Press Club today.
If we hit 2 degrees of warming or more and fail to meet the Paris Agreement goals, which is where Labor's weak targets take us, the Great Barrier Reef will die, as will the 60,000 jobs that depend on it. More coal and gas mines will cause more floods, fires and droughts. They will increase the cost of living, destroy infrastructure, ecosystems will collapse and more species will become extinct. And more of us will die.
Good Lord, the fear and loathing, Barnaby Joyce. Now, what I want to ask you about here is it drives me nuts because most politicians won't even go down this path. You will. And that is, sure, we want to do our bit as a nation when it comes to global efforts on climate change, but A, the rampant alarmism, and B, this pretense that what Australia does will change the temperature of the world is just so deceptive and delusional.
Well, you know, he would have made Hunter S. Thompson proud with that diatribe. It is patently absurd. Patently absurd. Behind my head, I can see it on your show, it's the sky. Do you honestly think anything that happens in that building there, honestly, in that building there, can change that up there? Do you honestly believe that? Because if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. This is an absurdity that the only thing this policy will have a direct effect on is your cost of living.
Yeah.
And you would note that right now things are getting dearer. Your fuel's getting dearer, your power's much dearer, and electricity, God, what can you say about fuel, power, food? And that, in one way or form or another, has connections almost directly correlated or directly affected by climate policy, both domestic and international. And I've been saying this on a number of shows. Remember, as you pay more money for your fuel, as you pay money for your power, as you pay more money for your food, somebody somewhere else is getting the dough, right? There's a trick to this. There's a trick to this, remember that. And, you know, what Mr Bandt said there would have put... It would be devastating for your economy. He's talking about our major exports. If we don't have the capacity for people overseas to want to buy stuff from us, then we have no capacity to buy stuff off them. And what we do get is a vastly higher price. Yeah,
that's one side of it.
Works against us.
And there's no doubt that these policies will make electricity more expensive and unreliable. We've seen that. The whole world's been going down that path. But what pains me is that Labor, the Teals, the Greens and half of the coalition just go along with this pretense, as if you're not levelling with Australian voters and saying, all right, we all want to, be good global citizens, but let's not pretend it's going to stop bushfires, stop floods, and somehow give you lovely sunny days every day in Australia.
And it's really massively over-egged. This is garbage, what they say. We're going to kill the Great Barrier Reef. And how many times have you heard this over the last couple of decades, that everything is an imminent demise and about to end? That the seas are going to rise, we're all going to get flooded, and And then there's a semblance of truth in it, but what they're trying to create is fear and loathing in Lass Sydney, you know. And this is all, we're going to create this mechanism of having you all frighten the bejesus out of you, and that becomes the bulwark to push in policy, which ultimately has a socialist aspect to it. That is the greater capacity of the state to have control over your life, and the divestment of assets from the individual to the state, and an incursion on the income-earning capacity of this nation, on the individual, and the overriding architecture of a state in direction over your life. Now, that is something that's implicitly against the reason that I and others went into politics, because we believe the individual resides above the state. And whenever you hear, you know, before it was salinity, it was the whales, it's the forests, it's biodiversity, now it's climate change. And every time behind it, the solution apparently is an extension of the socialist principle of more say of the state, more say of the government over your life, and ultimately a cost that comes back to you. You pay for this, right?
Yeah.
If you don't ever think anything that happens in that building, wherever it's gone, that building,
there it is.
That building is there to save you money. What that building there does when they pass this legislation is cost you money.
You're spot on, Barnaby Joyce, and you've got to keep arguing sense on this stuff. There has to be a reckoning. Thanks for joining us.